Hello folks, my name is Jay, and this is my first video, and today we'll be covering the Gothic subculture. From here on out I'll most likely do videos on scuba diving, but for now we're going to be discussing the Gothic subculture. To start some things out, my background, grew up in the Philadelphia area, was exposed to the Gothic scene slash industrial and also death metal and black metal in the late 90s. So I kind of grew into the scene with that, and then into the early 2000s, that's when I was exposed to more music, and then into the mid 2000s, that's when I was an active participant in the club scene. And then as the years went by, as I grew in the scene, I was able to become a Gothic tourist and visit club events across the country, Texas, Florida, the Midwest, and all throughout the Northeast. And then eventually I was able to afford to go overseas to Maraluna and the Wave Gothic Treffen. So it's pretty unique when you get to go to these massive festivals and see so many people that are a part of the various subcultures of goth, but they come together and they enjoy the art and music of the scene. So anywho, that's kind of my background a little bit. So a lot of these videos, they ask, well, what is goth? So traditionally speaking, the Gothic subculture came from the punk scene into the late 70s, and then you had your early bands in the early 80s, and then eventually you had your second wave bands in the late 80s and into the 90s and all that good stuff. So at its core, you have goth rock, death rock, whatever you want to label it, but that's your traditional Gothic music. It came from that music scene. So when folks ask, you know, could you be goth and not listen to the music? I'm like, well, I guess, sure, you can enjoy the literature and the films and the fashion aspect of the scene. That's cool, but give the music a chance, because, you know, at its heart and foundations, a lot of it started with the music scene and the clubs and bands, etc. So give it a shot. You know, if you genuinely don't like it, you know, hey, that's cool. All right, I won't hold it against you. So anywho, another aspect of goth, you know, people talk about, you know, religion and stereotypes, and they're like, well, goths are Satanists. And thankfully, being from a big city, I never had to deal with too much of that. But let me just tell you, unlike, and this is what I really enjoy about the subculture, unlike heavy metal or you know, the cliches of heavy metal or the cliches of punk, goth is a lot more broad in belief system. Religiously speaking, you have goths of all kinds of backgrounds, whether they're Wiccan or, you know, any type of, you know, pagan, or you know, and there's Satanists there too, atheists, and also Christians, you know, whether it's, you know, Protestant or Catholic, and then there's you know, Muslims that are into the goth scene, and Hindu, etc., and Buddhist. Religion does not matter. You can be of any religion. I myself grew up a Christian, and, you know, blah, you know, so you can be of any faith. Politically speaking, you can be of any political view and be in the scene. Typically, you know, when you're a part of a scene like this, you tend to be a little bit more open-minded than most folks, because you're used to the general public seeing you as spooky. So you tend to be a little bit more open-minded. So, which leads me to the next conversation: elitism. So a lot of videos out there complain about elitists and pretentious people and all that stuff. Well, alright, I can understand it, alright? So in my experience, there's I'm going to discuss two main categories of elitists. You got your small town folks that have not been exposed to a greater scene, and these are the folks that think they're the gothest people of the world because they've never met any other goths. So you got those folks, and typically they don't know how to act when they're actually like at a big city concert or a club event. But then you got your big city elitists and pretentious folks, and I guess these are, people see these more, but these folks typically just complain about the old days, and they say, hey, when I was back in the day, it was a better scene. And you know what? I can understand that. But the thing is, and this is where I come in, if you want the scene to grow and do better, do something about it, all right? When there's young people that are rocking their Marilyn Manson shirt, don't be like, you're a loser. Ah. Be a mentor, be a good influence on them. Bring them to the dark side of the force, all right? Just be like, hey, you like Manson? I got some bands for you, check these bands out, and then help build them up, because that's how they grow in the scene. Because everybody remembers, when they first started off, and me, for instance, I started off as that typical mall goth, except I couldn't afford the clothes, so I would just get black clothes from like Burlington Coat Factory. So anyway, that's kind of how you start off, and you move up as time goes by, and you learn about the music and all that good stuff, and the more underground stuff. So that's how you get into it. But like I said, you can be your own. You can be a mentor to these young rascals that are just getting into the scene, which leads to the next conversation. All right, do I think the scene is dying? Well, in a way, it definitely is. I've been able to see some great videos and interviews where club owners and promoters are discussing why they think the scene is dying. And one of the biggest things that I've heard from it is that club events aren't all ages, and they're 21 plus, so young people aren't getting into the scene. One of the other big things was that the economy, which is a big factor. People are working more. And then, of course, you have your elder goths that are only coming out to certain events, like maybe a band's in town, or maybe it's a big, like, a Halloween event or whatever. They're not going as often. And from what I've seen from some of these videos, that's kind of a big factor across the board. Young people are only going to like events here and there. They're not kind of going, every week or even every month or whatever there's an event. So they're not doing that. So money's a big factor. And then, in my humble opinion, one of the other factors is that when it comes to our current pop culture, something brooding and dark like the goth scene is not really in style. What's kind of in style is this good time, good feel, party all day music. And you see it not only in pop music, and like hip-hop music that kind of doesn't even talk about gangster stuff anymore. They're more concerned about money, clubs, and good times. You even see it in the country music scene. Like, these pop country artists, they're singing about the same crap. Like, could the DJ play my song? No one freaking cares about what song you want to what filthy song you want to hear in your club. All right? And anyway, I could go on about the country scene, but that's what's pop culture right now, this feel good party music. So that's one of the other things. I think if it's gonna grow, it may take something like a big pop cultural phenomenon, like a new movie, or some big some work of literature that promotes the scene or something like that. Back in the day, in the 90s, You had like The Crow, and you had The Matrix and Nightmare Before Christmas, and all that other stuff that, you know, that catered to that audience, and you don't really see it as much, and it's not in. So hopefully something changes. Who knows? But as far as your local scenes are concerned, be a mentor to the youngsters. And hopefully as time goes by, people are able to go to more events and all that good stuff. And band-wise, I can understand a lot of the bands, a lot of the classic bands, and a lot of the younger bands, because of the economy, they're not able to do as much music, and they're not able to tour as much. I know I was in an agro-tech band for 2-3 years, and it was not a moneymaker. All right, so it was awesome. I regret nothing. It was an incredible experience. It was great to be able to experiment in that subgenre of music, and it was awesome being able to perform at club events and other venues and with other bands of different genres. It was an awesome time. So, but anywho, that's kind of the current state right now. And so, without further ado, I'm going to go into my makeup tutorial, because, hey, you guys deserve the best. So, I'm going to show you how I do it. Get my water real quick. It takes a lot of effort to do makeup properly. So, alright guys, keep it goth, keep it spooky, and remember all the sage advice I gave you, and have a fantastic day.